up and saw no one but the woman, he said to her, "Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you?" Verse 11, one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said to her, "Neither do I." Can you imagine hearing that from Jesus? "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Well, I want to be a friend like Jesus, so there are three things that I want to notice about Jesus being a friend, all right? Here's number one. A friend like Jesus isn't condemning. A friend like Jesus isn't condemning. You know, one of the most famous verses in the Bible, John 3:16, God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. If you go on just a little bit, here's what it says. "For I did not come into the world to condemn the world." Do you realize Jesus' purpose in coming was not to condemn us? He did not come to condemn us. He came to save us. And the reason is because we're already condemned. We were already condemned. So he says, "This woman, I don't condemn you." Now, why would he say that? And why didn't Jesus condemn sinners for sinning? Well, let me tell you why. I believe that he understood that that's what sinners do. Now, we have to understand this. I know this seems kind of simple, but I think it surprises us when we hear about a sinner sinning. And I don't understand why it would surprise us. And I think in some ways it offends us. And so we end up not wanting to be a friend of the person, not wanting to share with the person, not wanting to talk to the person. So I'm going to give you a revelation that I want you, if you're taking notes, I want you to write it down, all right? If you're not taking notes, I want you to write it down. Okay? Or at least remember this. It's real simple, okay? Dogs bark. Write this down. This is important. Dogs bark. Cats meow. And sinners sin. Dogs bark because they're dogs. Cats meow because they are cats. Listen, sinners sin because they are. That's what sinners do. You understand? Let me say it another way. Swimmers. Good. Okay. Hunters. Golfers. I said that one time. A lady on the front row said, "Lie." That's true too. That's true too. Hunters hunt. Golfers golf. Sinners sin. That's what they do. Don't be surprised when you're talking to your neighbor. Now listen, I'm going to just say something. Please don't get offended. But when you're talking to your neighbor and your neighbor voted for the wrong person, that's what sinners do. Don't get into some big political argument with him. Went into Jesus and he'll vote for the right person. See, we just get all upset when sinners sin. It bothers us when sinners sin because we expect them not to sin. Now, here's what the best example I could give of this. How many of you have ever at some point in your life been to, both campuses now, Hal Herkins, well, how many of you have been to another country at some time? Can I see? Okay. How do they drive in other countries? Yeah. They have lines, but they don't mean anything. You ever notice that? I mean, in America, if there are 3 lanes, then the maximum number of cars that you will see at a red light is 3, right? Okay. In another country, it's 7. And I said cars. If I said vehicles and included mopeds, it'd be 16. They don't care about the lines, and they go all over the place. The very first time I was in another country, I was driving, and this missionary was driving us at this point, and he was just going through stop signs. We're just boom, 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 and stop signs. He's driving right through them. And I said to him, "Why don't you stop at the stop signs?" He said, "Someone will run into the back of you." And so I said to him, I bet you have a lot of wrecks here, don't you? You know what he said? No. He said, "We have very few wrecks." He said, "As a matter of fact, do you know which country leads the world in car wrecks? America. Do you know why? Because in America, we expect you stay in your line. Don't cross your line, buddy. But see, in another country, they expect you to come across the line. So they're actually looking for you. In America, when someone comes across the line, it surprises us. It shocks us, right? Someone comes, they can even just get close to the line. Honk, honk, hey, 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 stay in your line. Stay in your line. And then as soon as we get up beside them, we give them. You got to give the look, don't you? The reason is because you're trying to help them so that they don't hurt someone else. It's not because you're actually angry at them. See, that's kind of the way we do with sinners. Sinners cross the line and we get mad at them. Listen to me. They don't know there's a line there. And you wouldn't have known about the lines except for the grace of God. So when you're talking with someone who doesn't know the Lord, cut him some slack. It's okay. That's not the issue. I remember talking to my neighbor one time, and he was drinking a beer. Now, not the neighbor where I live now, just in case you're here. But another neighbor, a long time ago, okay? But I was talking with this guy, and he was drinking a beer, and all of a sudden he said to me, he said, "Oh, I probably shouldn't be drinking this in front of you, should I?" Because he knew I was a preacher. And I said, "I don't care if you drink a beer." I said, "Matter of fact, I don't even think it's a big deal to God." And he said, "What?" I said, "It's not the beer that God's concerned about, it's your heart. And God sent his son to die for your sins and for my sins so he could spend eternity with you in heaven." You know what the guy said? I've never heard that in my life. Probably because most preachers talk to him about the beer. That's not what you need to talk to him about. You talk about the heart. All right, so Jesus isn't condemning. Here's number two. A friend like Jesus isn't compromising.